everybody. It's Michelle Patterson. We're here with the Real Share Daily Huddle, and today we have Joyce Gerber on the phone. We were just talking about technology and getting up to speed. And I think, Joyce, I am right there with you. My kids are so far advanced, and I'm so thankful for my producer who's on this, who can help me get this messaging out there. So welcome to the show, and I'm excited for this next hour.
Thank you very much. Same here. Same here.
I'm going to share a little bit about your background, that you use the principles of naturopath and functional medicine in your practice. You're certified in nutrition, colon hydrotherapy, iridology, herbology, shiatsu, reflexology, and neurolinguistic programming, and is a licensed in massage therapy. You're a health practitioner and educator, speaker, consultant, and coach, and you assist people in creating and maintaining optimal health, and you help them reverse dis-ease, which is something that I want to talk about on this show. She utilizes cutting-edge modalities for cleansing and detoxification, weight loss, anti-aging, nutritional replenishment, and energy and performance. And you're committed to offering people alternatives to drugs and surgery, and to teaching them how to eat well, live well, and be well. Joyce's unique approach makes health simple, fun, and delicious. So let's start there, because that to me is probably the piece that's going to get individuals actually doing this. And that is, when it's something that brings joy into their life, they're going to continue to do it. And one of the things that I was told when I had a diagnosis that was not very favorable was, Michelle, you need to bring in 100% joy into your life. You know, whatever that is, start bringing that in. And if you're doing stuff that is not bringing you joy, stop doing it. And I have been told, and let's start out with just the nutrition aspect and the colonics. So how long have you been doing that for?
Colon hydrotherapy since 1984. It's such a funny story. The way this all started was my big move away from home at the age of 20, when I declared my independence. I was in Miami from New York. I moved to Miami, and I stuck my thumb out to hitchhike. And somebody named Johnny picked me up. He was completely passionate about living foods and raw foods and nutrition and cleansing and fasting and detoxification. He brought me to my first natural food store and restaurant, and I just loved it. And everything I read just made so much sense. So years later, when I decided I wanted to make holistic health my profession, I started with massage therapy. That was my first license. Then I became a certified colon hydrotherapist. That was in 1984. I continued to study with a lot of incredible people with nutrition, people like Dr. Bernard Jensen, who was a total pioneer. He was given up to die at the age of 18, discovered the principles of nutrition and cleansing and colon cleansing, lived to the age of 92. An amazing woman named Anne Wigmore, who had been thrown from her horse when she was 18, developed gangrene. They wanted to amputate her legs. Her grandmother was an herbalist and started feeding her the green foods of the earth, healed her legs. She lived a fine life as an adult until she got cancer in her 50s. And once again, she remembered what she did with her grandmother. Went on a program where she was using lots of living foods. She experimented with the different greens, started using wheatgrass. She was really the grandmother of wheatgrass, and healed her body.
I was thinking about how people start wheatgrass. I mean, it's one of those things where, who goes and just like literally take a big old thing of wheatgrass? I mean, does anybody like the taste of it initially? And then do they just grow accustomed to it because they hear all the benefits about wheatgrass?
It doesn't have to be specifically wheatgrass. I think in general, when a person's bloodstream is acidic, I don't know how many of you remember from For me, it was high school chemistry, where the teacher brought out a chart of the elements, and she put it on the blackboard, and she said, every substance has either an acid chemistry after metabolism or an alkaline chemistry. And what I learned later on was that our blood is slightly alkaline, between 7.35 and 7.45. So most of the typical American diet is an acid chemistry after metabolism. So people who are acidic, and that's most people, when you start introducing greens, they taste terrible. Often people get nauseous. Some people like wheatgrass because, I mean, all of them are very high in oxygen. They're very high in chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is like the blood of a plant, very high in oxygen. So when you think about it, when our bodies are beginning to deteriorate and degenerate, and they're moving towards death, and then you're putting in foods that are alive, that are full of enzymes, that haven't been cooked, that are, you know, they're facing the sun, they're getting all this sunlight. We put that in our bodies, that's like giving us life. And so the more we detoxify, the more we get poisons out of the body, and the more we get the minerals and the enzymes from those living foods in, the less bad they taste. You know, the first few days, you can get nauseous. There's lots of toxins in the liver. And when you're going on the proper kind of detox, digestion takes more energy than any other body function. So when you want to get well, if you lighten or eliminate the amount of digestive energy needed, your body has all that energy to eat up and dissolve and eliminate whatever is toxic. You know, your body's not going to go right to your brain tissue or your heart tissue and start to eat that up. It's going to go to where toxins are stored and start to eat up and dissolve those. So the green foods are very potent.
And how, I mean, I love the story. I've never heard a story where you actually, you know, were picked up, you were driving. So I want to talk about that and you know, how sure you were of this ride. But I'm fascinated by individuals who just go after their passion. And you definitely strike me. I mean, you reached out to the Real Share and said, "Hey, I want to be on this show. You know, I love what you're up to." And it sounds like one of your friends actually had suggested, you know, get on this show. I've been going through my own healing journey this last year, being diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and just going after it and feeling like, you know what, you know, there are healthy options that are available on the planet. And I think the hardest thing, and this is why I'm doing this show and kept saying I'm going to keep doing it until it brings me joy. And if it stops bringing me joy, then I'm going to come up with something else to do, because I'm doing this because I really want this information to go back to individuals and let them know that they can have healthy options. And so let's start talking about that, because one of the things, and just how you got into this space of doing colonics, which, by the way, where are you based? Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles. Okay. So I'm from New York. That Miami Beach interlude was for 2 years on and off. And I went back to New York. And for a few years, you know, I went to college. It got clearer and clearer that I wanted to have my profession be in holistic health. And I knew that going through all of the training of medical school wasn't really what I was wanting to learn. So back then, there weren't really 4-year naturopathic schools like there are now. So I really got to just pick and choose the masters of the day, you know, Bernard Jensen, Ann Wigmore. There was a woman named Anne-Marie Colbin, who started the Natural Gourmet Institute for Food and Health. And it started in her kitchen. And she just became so popular and helped so many people that she created a school. So I just got to sit at the feet of these incredible people who healed themselves and or helped other people. And it's true, it's just been this passion. It wasn't this well thought out plan, like, go to this 4-year school and get this degree. It was more like going to the experts of their time, getting certifications with them, drinking up all the knowledge I could. And I am so grateful for the people I studied with, you know.
And you just seem like you have such a passion for really helping others and helping people. So let's talk about colonics and colonoscopy, and how long have you been practicing that?
I got certified in 1984, but
Okay, so that
actually,
you started it back then when you started your practice. Okay, wonderful.
I started my practice in 82 with massage therapy. But, it was years before that when I was picked up by Johnny in Florida. And little by little, I realized I want to do this. Um, and when I learned about juice fasting and detoxification, that was back in the 70s. So I started to get colon hydrotherapy at that time because when I started to do my own juice fasts, I would go to a professional colon hydrotherapist because basically, so as I said, when digestion takes more energy than any other body function, when you lighten or eliminate digestive energy, your body just starts to pour out all these toxins. You don't want to reabsorb them and have them go back into your bloodstream and get redeposited. So with the colonic is sort of the colloquial way of saying colon hydrotherapy. You're on a table. In general, you're on a table. There's a machine on the wall. There are two tubes that connect there's a speculum inserted into the rectum, just like an anal thermometer would be, a rectal thermometer would be. And there are two tubes that go from that speculum to the machine on the wall. And there's some knobs on the machine. And when you slowly turn on the water to flow, you've got clean filtered water going in to the colon, which is also the large intestine. It's another word. And the colon or large intestine is the body's sewage system. It's the last 5.5 feet of the gastrointestinal tract. So you chew and you swallow, food goes down the esophagus. Then you've got the stomach, the upper left quadrant of the stomach area. Then you've got 30 feet of small intestine all curled up there. Then it opens up to the last 5.5 feet of colon. And then you've got the rectum and the anus and elimination. So by directly putting water into the colon, you're helping the sewage system carry out its waste. And when you are overburdened with poisons, which whenever you get sick, that's basically what's happening. There are two main causes of disease on a physical level. Poisons that accumulate and don't come out and start to impede the body's function, or nutritional deficiency, because if we don't have the right fuel to run our cells and organs, again, we're going to decline. So it's a 45-minute treatment. When you're on the colonic table, for 45 minutes, water is going in and out. The clean water goes in through one tube. The water with the waste comes out another tube. And as it's going out down the drain, there's a window in the machine. So you get to watch the show, so to speak. Obviously, with what's happening now with coronavirus.
I just want to take pause. You can't.
Sure.
It's like, okay, is she going to just let that one go by? Because really, I mean, it is quite a show, and I've been experiencing my first, colonics, and then have been doing the colon therapy. And I want to talk about how frequently you recommend doing it, but also, I mean, it's fascinating. Just to see what comes out of that, and it goes through this piping, yes. And you can see, how dehydrated you are, and really see the how healthy an individual is based on that show that's going by.
Yes.
And yes. What is it that what should somebody be looking for? And that's a healthy, bowel movement, and is somebody who is just getting a regular treatment and being updated. But what should somebody be looking for?
Okay, well, if somebody is getting on the table and it's their first time, Now, if they've been eating a diet that's very high in plant fiber, because fiber is really in the vegetable world, in the plant world. So if they're eating a diet full of fiber and mineral rich with enough enzymes, ideally we should be having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. Most people do not. The typical American diet is extremely constipating. There's no fiber at all with animal foods. White flour, white sugar, refined breads, refined pasta, refined rice, they all kind of turn to glue on the walls of the intestine. So if somebody takes a long time before we start to see waste come through the tube, that's one indication to me that there's a lot of waste that has to start to be dissolved and broken down to be carried out. Often when I've had somebody like that and we don't see something, they say, oh, I guess I didn't need it. And no, that's the exact opposite. If somebody is in a lot of discomfort and their feeling is, I want to get up off the table, that actually indicates they really need it. So
And I want to,
I
in
recommend
the
the
spirit,
series.
yeah, I wanted to say in the spirit of the real share and what this is all about is just for me and my girlfriends, to be sharing with each other, what can you expect, and with all these different healing modalities that are available out there. But for me, the medication that I was put on really caused me a lot of constipation. I went, 5 days without having a bowel movement, and it was painful, really painful, to the point where I ended up going in and getting an enema and, starting that process along. And so to your point, I went in to get on the table and nothing came out. And it was like, oh, this is good. And it wasn't good because again, it was I was so constipated.
Well, that's why nutrition and using food as medicine, goes hand in hand with the colon hydrotherapy. And I always tell people I work with, you really have to do both. And right now, with so many offices being closed with coronavirus, we can do so much to get waste moving out of your colon, even without getting you on the colonic table. But when you're on the table, yes, I can see, first of all, how long it takes before there's elimination. There is a time, the very beginning of the colon is called the cecum, C-E-C-U-M. When the water, because the goal of colon hydrotherapy, one of the two bingos, I call them bingos. One bingo is when the water has gone all the way from where you first insert the speculum, which is the very end where the elimination would happen from. If the water goes all the way around the 5.5 feet to the beginning of the colon, which is the cecum, when the cecum releases its waste, it has a very hot feeling to it. It almost feels like diarrhea for the person. Sometimes they get nauseous. It comes out with a lot more force and speed, and it has a very muddy, bubbly look to it. It has a very different look when I'm looking through the window. And often I will say to them, is this warm? Is this hot? Is this a different temperature? And they'll say yes. Sometimes people get the chills. So that's one profound thing to notice. Our whole gastrointestinal tract, from the esophagus to the anus, contracts and expands. That's how it moves the food along, and that's how it moves the waste out. And it's called peristalsis. Well, so inches in diameter. So when you have a lot of waste that starts to accumulate on the walls and mucus from dairy products, and the opening gets more and more narrow, well, that slows down elimination. If you want the walls of the whole GI tract to be contracting and expanding, but you've got this hard coating, well, then it's no longer flexible to be able to do that pumping action. And you have these thin pencil-like eliminations. And that same coating that's stopping peristalsis will affect the absorption of nutrients and minerals through the walls into our bloodstream. And when you have an environment that's full of waste, it destroys the good bacteria. We have this terrible toxin now called glyphosate that they're spraying on everything. And glyphosate destroys the villi. Villi look like little fingers, and they're all along the walls of the small intestine. Glyphosate will destroy those villi. Therefore, we have no ability to absorb nutrients. Then we are deficient in minerals. It destroys the good bacteria, and it destroys the lining, the walls of the intestinal tract. So there's a lot I do nutritionally to help build up the intestinal tract, because that's so connected to the immune system. The immune system is 70%, our gut is 70% responsible for serotonin, which is the feel-good chemical in the brain. So truly everything is so connected. And when we're talking about gut health, we're very much talking about the immune system, you know?
And there's so many questions I have for you, and I want to talk about that. And one of the comments that our nutritionist had was that your immune system is your 8-year-old self. So Liliana Partita, she talked about how everything is truly connected, and emotionally, it's tied. But are you seeing? And this is something I have so many friends that have reached out and said to me, they're fighting cancer, and they have colon cancer, and I mean I'm seeing a lot more, and that being on the rise. Are you seeing that as well?
I'm seeing diseases we've never had before. And I've also had such incredible experiences in my own practice. My own mother in the 80s had a lump in her breast, and she was terrified. And at that time, I work a lot with superfoods now, because we talked earlier about if something's not sustainable and user-friendly and manageable, people can't do it. One of the things I love about superfoods, which is really combinations of living foods, plants, herbs, vegetables, fruits that are very potent in healing abilities and nutrition. When you dehydrate them and don't use any heat, their enzymes are intact. We didn't have much of that during the 80s with my mom, so I said, let's get you on a program. We got her a juicer. And she made an appointment to have a mammography, but it was 10 days away. So I said, Mom, over the next 10 days, you're either going to be doing something to hurt yourself or help yourself. Let's get you on a program. We put her on a juice fast. She came to see me twice a week for colon therapy and massage. The days she didn't see me, she gave herself enemas. Well, at the end of 5 weeks, not only was the lump in her breast gone, but her arthritis completely went away, and she had released 35 pounds. I had another client who had shown up. She used to just get massage, Alicia. And she said, I just came from my doctor. I had a cyst on my ovary, 3 times the size of the ovary. Now, I said, let's get you on a program. In her case, she had a very demanding job, so she wasn't prepared to just do a juice fast. I eliminated all animal foods, all dairy, refined flour, sugar, alcohol, coffee. She had a lot of fresh squeezed juice. She saw me a couple of times a week. And literally within a month, the cyst was gone. It was so exciting. A few months later,
wonderful news.
Yeah, she had a second opinion a couple months later. It was gone. And then years later, when I moved out to California, she found me. I was advertising in a holistic paper. And she said, all these years, I've been fine because I followed your principles and your protocols. And I had another woman. This also just comes out of me because it was so exciting. She had diverticulitis, which is where little pockets pouch out all along the intestine because there's so much pressure internally and there's so much toxic waste in there. Now, she did not tell me, even though I have people fill out a form, that she had diverticulitis. So I had her on the colonic table. We were like 3/4 of the way through, and then she told me she had this issue. I got her on a program of superfoods and changed her diet radically. Something I do as part of my services and part of my Extreme Health in 90 Days program is I take people through a natural foods market. I call it a guided tour through the health food store. And I meet them, and we spend at least 2 hours going through every shelf of the store. And I introduce them to the healthy alternatives to what they're eating now, so that they're not just feeling deprived and overwhelmed. It's like, if you usually eat this and we know this isn't so good, this is delicious and this can take its place. So I did that with Arlene and her husband, because he was getting really high blood sugar towards diabetes. In 1 month, she had been on Flagyl for 4 years. She was in pain every day, and they had scheduled surgery. In 1 month of doing this program, she was off Flagyl, she was out of pain, and they didn't do the surgery. So this is I love this. I love this. I mean, nature is such a gift. And if we simply take away the impediments that right now we are unknowingly putting into our bodies, and we're really putting the nourishment that our cells are meant to have in, miracles happen.
I agree. I mean, I think too is as we share what we know, I mean, that's what the real share is all about, is crowdsourcing miracles, meaning, I have information, you have information. What happens together collectively when we come together? Individually, we don't have all the answers, but together we absolutely do. And I love that you brought that up. Let's talk a little bit about food. And I want to get into specifics about this protocol. And also, when we do come out of this coronavirus, I would love to go with you to the store and just follow you with a camera and up and down the rows, because this for me, Joyce, has been the biggest challenge in getting the diagnosis of stage 4 for me, is what I eat. And it's literally been a challenge. So much so I haven't, I've been constipated, so I'm not having the regular bowel movements like you talked about. And, this morning I felt like, my husband, he said to me, he's like, "Oh, that's great news. I pooped this morning." And we've been together, 25 years. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's come to that. We're celebrating, when one of us, has a bowel movement. And I think we don't put enough weight on how important that is, to make sure that this body, that we have, that we're really listening to it and paying attention to what our body is asking for. So let's talk about the different types of diets that are out there, because like I said, this was probably my biggest stress. And so right now I'm currently on a keto diet, and I just don't care for meat. I mean, I've always been a meat eater, but for some reason my body is just wanting greens. It's wanting, carbs as well, and not going to this, keto, mostly, a protein diet. And what do you tell people that come to you that say, "Hey, I just, I want to stay a vegetarian, or my preference is to eat in this eat live food"? What do you tell them?
There's definitely incredible plant-based proteins that I work with. In fact, one of them is in the physician's desk reference, and they've used it for people who are on dialysis. They use it for muscle wasting with people with AIDS and cancer. So there's definitely ways to build up your muscles or maintain your muscles without using the acid forming, no fiber animal foods. It's really true that we do need to have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, or you're really creating disease by not eliminating efficiently. So there are certain formulas I work with that I would get you on right away that would really help. A combination of a formula that would help you heal the gut and get that glyphosate out, along with a really good fiber, can do wonders for the gut. In terms of waiting till coronavirus is over, I would be happy if you want to go to one natural foods market and I'll go to another, and we can just have our video phones on and I can just take you through the store virtually.
I love that. Oh, that's a great idea. We can absolutely do that,
Yeah.
and set something up like that.
Yeah, because I work with people long distance. Obviously, not everybody is in close proximity, and we're really fortunate to have the technology, even though parts of it stump both of us. We don't have to let anything limit us at all. You know?
Yeah, we really don't. And that's what I'm finding too, is that before we would limit ourselves to our immediate community, what's within a mile or 2 miles. But with what you're doing, and I applaud you for reaching out and saying, hey, I have information I want to share. You could definitely tell that you're coming from a place of wanting to be of service and just help others heal. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. In fact, I was thinking, I'm going to be leading a group cleanse / program the 20th of May. And I will be working with plant-based foods. And some of that does involve the protein foods that you are looking for when you reach for a keto kind of program. So you don't have to give that up. We can just use higher qualities of protein that will nourish your muscles and nourish your cells and brain, and yet not add any kind of, regular protein. Often there's ammonia type byproducts, and they take 6 to 8 hours to digest when they're, food combining is really important too, because starches require an alkaline enzyme for digestion, and they start to digest in the mouth. Proteins require an acid enzyme. So we've grown up with the typical American diet. You have some meat on your plate and potato and vegetable. So when you're putting in 2 different food groups that are requiring different digestive enzymes, a lot of times it just sits as a lump in your stomach. That's what all the Tums and Rolaids and Alka-Seltzer and whatever the digestive soothers are these days. People are on, Xanax or Zantac or one of those. By watching how you combine your foods. And if you know you're not going to be combining quite so properly, to make sure you're having digestive enzymes at that meal to help that along.
Well, and going back to that comment that you had earlier, which I thought was brilliant, is, basically sit back and watch the show. You watch what goes by. That to me was the most fascinating for anybody out there that has had a colonic and gotten up on the table. And when you watch what goes by, I would think in the position that you're in, it makes you not eat certain foods because they don't digest well together. And you can see it firsthand.
You can see it, and you can also feel it. When people are eating foods that don't combine well, if people are, when the bacterial balance in the intestine is off, there's so much discomfort when people have candida, which is overgrowth of yeast. And so again, when you have poisons in the colon and old waste, and you're not having everything organic and alive, there's so many and there's antibiotics to keep animals alive. Factory farmed animals are fed antibiotics to keep them alive. They're given hormones to fatten them up fast. I first came across this information in 1987 when John Robbins, the son of the Baskin-Robbins ice cream empire, he wrote this amazing book exposing the practices of what we do with our food today. And factory farming, the practices are horrendous. He talked about how they give cattle, they put a little cement dust in their food to make them a little heavier. So, when they were going for slaughter, the people who slaughtered them would be paid a little extra because there was more per pound. It sounds like that's preposterous and you couldn't believe that. But there are some practices in our big agro world now that are scary. And
think about that. Let's talk about that, because diagnosis, it came back after they did the analysis, is it was 100% related to stress and environment. And and so for me, I got excited because I thought, okay, I can do something about this. I can actually monitor what goes into my body. I can make sure that the only thing that does go inside my body, my mind, in this vessel is made from love, and it is the best for me. And so I started having that mindset of just really being very cautious of what I was reaching for, and what I was going without, because it wasn't serving me. And so that would be my question to you is, we've seen how organizations have made the choice to put money as the deciding factor first,
Mhm.
and really, at what expense it does to our own health when we do that, and we put, um,
Yes.
really greed, and it doesn't serve us well at all. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think making the choices like you're talking about, and that is, what is going to be good for me individually, versus, you've got these uh, corporations that are really, eh, you know, f- taking shortcuts, with our health. And not only is it not necessary, it's something that is detrimental to our health. And so being able to reverse it. What is it that you tell individuals? And again, they come in. It's a very vulnerable state to be in,
Mhm.
and you in this case don't see stuff elimination going by. What is it that you tell them, in what's kind of the first point of, action that they can take to improve their health?
Almost always, I will recommend that we get the person on a cleanse. Since cleanse and detox are words that are overused and mean so many things, what I mean by that is let's get you on a program where for a certain number of days, you are going to very much lighten the amount of digestive energy your body is using. So for, let's say, 10 days, because I often do a 30-day program with a person. So the first 10 days, we're introducing more healthy foods and superfoods and supplements that each have a very particular focus, bringing more nourishment to the cells, healing and repairing the gastrointestinal tract, high levels of antioxidants to balance and to help with deep sleep, which is so important. And then maybe the next 10 days, we're going even deeper where there's going to be very little solid food used, maybe just some fruits and vegetables. And then the last 10 days coming out, we're adding food slowly. So when I'm doing that with a person, it really is like overhauling a car. When a car starts to malfunction, you need a complete overhaul. The oil is changed, the filters are changed. So when we're not interfering with the body's digestion and we're doing everything we can to eliminate poisons, that is where we can create an alkaline blood chemistry. That's where we can heal and repair the gut. And that's so it's like the foundation. If you have a gastrointestinal tract that is so full of waste that it can't absorb poisons properly, the villi of the small intestine have been so compromised that it doesn't have the ability to absorb. First, we have to heal and repair and take out the garbage. So that's detoxification. That's always where I start with a person. Once we've taken out the garbage and begun the healing and repairing, then as we're adding more and more nutrients, the body is in a position to absorb those nutrients and actually use them and function well. And when you do these deep overhauls, then you don't necessarily, have to go that deep again. You can just get periodic tune-ups. So that's kind of how I work with people. I also want to make a distinction. There's, because I'm not saying everybody has to be totally raw vegan forever, for the rest of their lives, everybody. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is there's a difference between a therapeutic diet and a daily optimum diet. And so when you're all the way on one side of the pendulum because you're out of balance or sick, sometimes you have to do a program that's all the way on the other side of the pendulum to bring things back to balance. And then once you do, a daily optimum way of eating is different than you were doing when you were doing the therapeutic program. Does that make sense?
It does. I think, and I think for people that are hearing that, that's helpful because they don't feel like it needs to be this massive overhaul, life-changing situation.
Right.
You can actually take one day at a time. And like you said, I went through and I took some notes when doing this 30-day plan. And then you talked about the last 10 days is then adding fruit back in. And then you go through this heal repair.
Well, no, the first 10 days, you're gradually adding healthier foods back in, but you're eliminating a meal. So you're eliminating a meal and adding a specific protocol that I work with, which are superfoods. So they don't require much digestion. So if we're giving the body a break from its usual amount of digestion and starting to work with the superfoods and things that are in powder or juice form or tablet or capsule form, we're giving the body a break and leading it into the second days 11 through 20, where you're basically just having the powders and the liquids and the tablets and the capsules that each have their reason and each have their target nourishment or healing and repairing or detoxification. And then after day 21 through 30, you're gradually coming out of that and adding one meal a day and continuing to have the majority of superfoods and supplements. And so that 30-day program really is an overhaul. The deepest part of the overhaul is days 11 through 20. Again, this is a very specific protocol. And anything I do, whether it's working with the detoxification part of the program with somebody or a daily healthy way of eating, it must be sustainable, it must be manageable, it must be user-friendly. It has to be delicious and enjoyable. Because I know for me, if something felt overwhelming or I'd feel deprived, I wouldn't want to do it. But food can be so delicious. And when you start to experience feeling good in your body, that's almost like this delicious nutrient you've been starved for. Suddenly it's like, oh my God, I feel great. I want to do that more. This tastes delicious. It's a whole shift, but it's not just a mental thing. When your blood chemistry changes, you don't have to just use mental willpower because suddenly there are things you're no longer craving. Your taste buds change. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it makes complete sense. And then you talked about doing this as a periodic tune-up. So how often do you recommend doing this? Once a year? Is it something, more frequently based on your health condition? What do you recommend?
I recommend when I'm starting out with somebody, I like to do something like this at least twice a year. And then there are variations. It's not like one program for everybody. That's why in my Extreme Health in 90 Days, yes, that first 30 days will be a detox. But they'll be eating some solid food during that time. 10 days of that will be that deeper cleanse. But then after the 30 days, we see, okay, where are you now? How are you feeling? Let's check the functioning of different systems and organs. And then to me, good health is always a combination of the right foods that you're eating as meals, the right superfoods and supplements, because we no longer can get everything we need just from a plate of food. We need certain amounts of extra nutrients that we can get from foods that are concentrated. When you have a food that's concentrated, you get many more of the nutrients of that food than you could get just on the plate of it. You get full. How much can you chew? How much can you eat with all that fiber? But when you have this huge bowl that's full of this fibrous plant food, but it has so many phytonutrients in it, and you kind of concentrate it down where the water is taken out and it's ground down to a powder. You take a couple of scoops of that, and it's absolutely renewing and healing for your body. And you're getting way more nutrients than just you could from a plate of food. So daily eating is important. Your supplementation is important, and then periodically cleansing. So I offer a series of 3, 6, or 12 colon hydrotherapy sessions. And then after that, like let's say somebody does this series of 12, and we start with 2 or 3 the first week. And then we might do, if we've done 3 the first week, maybe we'll do 2 the second week, or maybe we will do 3. Then the third week we'll go to 2. The fourth week we might go to 1. Then maybe we'll skip a week. It really depends on the person's condition, how far they are from me, their travel, their work schedule, if they've got a lot of kids at home. All of that is taken into consideration. And that's why using the nutrition to help facilitate the elimination and the healing goes hand in hand. So people don't have to feel like, oh gosh, if I can't do colonics with you now, I can't get well. That's absolutely not true. Right now we're where we are right now. And if people can't go to offices to do this, we absolutely, we can get well using food as medicine.
Yeah. Joyce, here's a question for you too, is what do you tell somebody that comes to you that wants to do a water fast? And I loved your comment earlier about the digestive tract. It's, when we're digesting, it's the largest amount of energy that's put towards digesting. And I think individuals, I didn't realize that. It's the biggest organ that you have, your skin, but then also your overall digestive tract. And so I've had individuals recommend doing a water fast because I can then jumpstart this elimination, and I could focus all of my energy on the elimination. What do you think about that?
My experience, when I first started reading all those years ago, one of the first books I read was How to Keep Slim, Healthy, and Young Through Juice Fasting with a naturopath at the time named Pavel Arola. And it made so much sense to me because juice doesn't really need digestion. You drink it and it goes right to your bloodstream and right to your cells. Now, fresh squeezed vegetable juices are very alkalizing. And again, when we're sick, we've moved towards a very acid chemistry in our blood. Well, not very acid or we'd be dead. But as it starts to move away from that 7.35 to 7.45 chemistry, that's an environment that is friendly to cancer cells. That's what a cancer cell really is. It's when we have cells that are trying so hard to survive and thrive, and the environment they live in is so compromised. They keep doing their best to replicate, but they're replicating under compromised situations. They're replicating not having the fuel and the building blocks they need. So they become an inferior kind of cell. And so when you're very acidic, just having water, well, yes, water will certainly cleanse you because you're not eating. So, but there's no need to go through the discomfort of not having any alkalinity come in. It's like, why put you just on water when that you're stopping your digestion? So of course you're going to get some benefit because your body's going to eliminate if it's not digesting. But if we can do that, putting alkalizing nutrients and substances into you, so first of all, we need that. We need an alkaline environment in your cells to heal, and you won't feel quite as bad. I don't see the reason to do that. There's a wonderful quote by Florence Nightingale, where she said, there are no specific diseases, there are only specific disease conditions. We're in a culture, and especially now with coronavirus, Our focus is always on the pathogen, the cancer cell, the virus, the bacteria, the pathogen, and we've got to go to war with it. We have to remember that everything lives in a context. We do that with our mental and psychological state. He did this to me. You made me mad. And our reactions happen not in a vacuum, they happen in a context. So in the same way, if the environment, our blood and our cells don't have the right chemistry, well, they're going to be very friendly hosts to any virus or germ or pathogen. If we keep focusing on changing the environment, the blood, the cells inside us, the biological terrain, that's what it's called, the biological terrain. In the same way, when you have a farmer trying to plant his or her seed or crop, you have to get rid of the stones and the weeds. You have to have enough water and enough sunlight, and then the seed will grow. So it's our job as the farmers for our own body to have the biological terrain perfect. So I would just say no need for just the water. We can get the same results using the juices and things where you don't have to digest. And that's been my experience.
Yeah, I did do a juice fast, and I had to really pay close attention to the sugar intake, and just not doing the apples and pineapple. And I mean, it's so easy to have a lot of sugar added into a juice fast.
That's why I don't do juice. That's why at this point I work specifically with superfoods that have a balance of everything needed that are extremely low in sugar. Juice fasting is what we used to do before the superfoods, but also, yes, if you're dealing with cancer, you would be doing mostly green juices. And that's specifically why I don't do that anymore. But I will say that when you are lightening the amount of digestive energy and you're bombarding your body with minerals and with enzymes and with chlorophyll, you're creating conditions in the body that will not allow anything toxic, anything compromised, anything pathogenic to keep developing or growing because you're becoming such an unfriendly host.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a couple things I want to, as we come down to the last bit of the hour, together is, and you talked about, it sounds like you're going to be doing a fast at the end of the month. And
Excellent.
See, that's how I view it. And I need to change my thought process. I'm viewing it as a fast. It's like, no, it's a cleanse. I like that. Yeah. And so I want to make sure that folks have a way of connecting with you and getting on board with doing that.
Sure. My website is healthisaninsidejob.com. Healthisaninsidejob.com. And my number where you can reach me is 310-980-7665. And I'll be happy to spell out the website and the email just in case. The website is HealthiSInside. Oh, sorry, wait, Health is an.
What we'll do is we'll actually include in the link. So that way you have it right there. And I know people will appreciate getting that information. And then my question for you, Joyce, is if you wish, if you go back and have somebody share something with you that you wished, would have told you as you were getting into this line of work and into this business, what would that look like for you? What's something that you would want to, as this stage, as this megaphone, be able to share back, but something that maybe somebody shared with you that you were, so thankful for this information. And we refer to it as the real share. It's, I'm sharing information that I have, you're sharing information that you have, and that's how we're able to really, be better together. It's how we're able to 10x ourselves and come together collectively. But is there something that you wish you would have, you wish somebody would have told you as you have audience members who may be facing a lot of individuals because they call me and ask me and they want to be a part of the show, is they're going through some type of dis-ease and are asking, how do we get out of this? Is what information would you share with them?
I would just say that when you're wanting to take responsibility for your health, or you're dealing with a diagnosis, the biggest thing to remember is focus on the environment. Don't go to war with the specific germ or virus or the name of the disease, because the truth is, no matter what part of the body is affected, no matter where it is, no matter what the symptom is, um, the two main causes are toxicity and nutritional deficiency. So if you just focus on let's clean house in the body and let's nourish properly, that's the most important thing to focus on. That actually was a message I was given. Perhaps what I wish somebody told me, which isn't necessarily about health, but I was so passionate about all the health stuff. But I'm kind of a child of the 60s. I was anti everything and rebelling against everything. So for me, knowing that there's a very separate thing between becoming very knowledgeable in health and how to share that with people. The whole aspect of how do you bring your information to people. When I was learning what I was learning, there were no talk of business practices or marketing or anything like that. So people like me, in a way, we were just sort of creating and making things up as we went. And I think the truth is, in any communication we want to do, because there's some very valid things to communicate, just as important as the topic you learn, you need to have the skills of how do I get this out there? How do I have it be relatable? How does this support me? Because it has to support me if I want to be very available to support other people. That is something I'm seeing more and more happening now. But when I was learning this, that wasn't really talked about very much. And in today's world, we all need to, take care of ourselves on every level. And stress, we're seeing now with coronavirus, financial stress is huge. So we have to find ways that take care of ourselves, that take care of all of us, that collectively we create new structures of how we live and how we work to support all of us.
No, that's absolutely right. Let's talk a little bit about just this emotional tie to our food, our bodies, what we put into it, and the relationship that we have with food and with that stress. Because I feel like when we are treating our bodies kindly and we're putting in healthy options and choosing healthy options, the stress dissipates and we don't have that same taxing burden of just the overall being overwhelmed. Are you finding that to be one of the results, is that individuals are coming back feeling so good that the stress is dissipated and because of changing in their diet?
Absolutely. I wish I could remember the exact quote. There was a woman, she was kind of a pioneer in nutrition and natural healing. Her name is Linda Rector Page, and she's a naturopath. And she had almost like an encyclopedia of like every page she'd have a protocol for. And she said something like, stress is not the cause of poor health. We fall prey to stress because of poor nutrition. And it wasn't exactly like that. I'm kind of saying it a little differently, but if we nourish our nervous system and our glands and our blood and all of our organs in ways where every part of our body is getting fed the way it needs to, it's true, we won't have the detrimental effects that stress to somebody who's being undernourished, or somebody who's very toxic will have a different reaction. So yeah, I think nutrition makes a huge difference for sure.
Well, and I think that's a great way to sum this up too. Stress is not the cause of poor health. It's because of poor nutrition. I think that goes back to owning your wellness and what this is all about, and really taking the approach of owning it, which is our next piece. Is we're going to go in and rock this out. But I have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for just educating us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll look forward to following you around the grocery store. We'll make that part of the second half.
That